The recent announcement that British lawyer Karim Khan will be the next chief prosecutor of the ICC has really grabbed the interest of very many Kenyans, especially Kenyans who were involved or are very familiar with the 2007 clashes in our country. And what is even more interesting is that the lawyer who was a frontrunner to get this post had already been shortlisted, but had a situation where the shortlist was reopened and a brand new entrant came in, Khan, and managed to get more votes and ultimately get the job. It is fascinating because this lawyer, who was previously a frontrunner, represented the victims, from Kenya, some of the victims, from the 2007 Manenos. And part of the reason why the shortlist was reopened, was as a result of pressure, actually a letter, from authorities in Kenya. What's going on here? I dive into all that in today's most fascinating show. Karibu sana. The world over, the success of a prosecutor is measured by the number of successful convictions they managed to accumulate under their belt. But at the International Criminal Courts at The Hague, it has been a little more complicated than that, because the ICC is relatively new and you're dealing with different jurisdictions, many of whom will not want to fully cooperate with you. Others will downright refuse to cooperate with you. It's a difficult job. Ask the current prosecutor, Fatwa Bensouda. She has restrictions to travel to the United States. The very first prosecutor of the court, Luis Moreno Ocampo, is being investigated still over allegations that he was the main reason why the Kenyan cases collapsed. And now we have a new chief prosecutor, who is to take office in June 16th this year, who has very close links to Kenya. British lawyer Karim Khan. And the circumstances under which Karim Khan was elected as the new chief prosecutor of the ICC are very fascinating. And let us start this fascinating story in early July last year. At that point in time, there were only two frontrunners set to take over from Fatwa Bensouda. Irish human rights lawyer Fagal Gaynor and Maurice Anya from Ghana. It was very obvious who the next ICC chief prosecutor was going to be. It was going to be the Irishman, Fagal Gaynor, who also has very close links with a country called Kenya. In the Kenyan trials, Gaynor represented victims of the 2007 clashes, some victims, mostly in the Naivasha area. Why was it so obvious, that the Irishman, Gaynor, was going to get the job? Well, it's very simple. The only other candidate shortlisted, Maurice Anya, was from Ghana, Africa. The current chief prosecutor is also from Africa. And so it was highly unlikely, that we would go again for chief prosecutor from Africa. More so when his opponent had excellent credentials for the job, and was from another continent. Because the whole idea is when you're running something international, you want to keep the international image. You don't want the ICC to look like an Africa court, which indeed it has been harshly criticized for being. And so everything was going on okay, and everything was very predictable. Then suddenly, a letter landed at the ICC from one of the member states. Can you guess which member state? The country called Kenya. The Kenyan ambassador to the Netherlands, Lawrence Lenayapa, wrote a letter complaining that this was not fair. He said the current shortlisting seemed to be skewed in favor of a certain candidate. He was, of course, talking about the Irishman. The long and short of what he said in the letter is that it seemed that there were some powerful forces very determined to have Gaynor as the next chief prosecutor. The whole process was not fair. This letter, more than anything else, forced the ICC to back up, and to back up very quickly. And the short list of candidates to be chief prosecutor was reopened. And suddenly, there was another familiar name with links to Kenya, lawyer Karim Khan, who represented Deputy President William Samoei Ruto at the ICC. Now, I have a question for you. Do you think that Bwana Khan woke up one morning, and he has a very busy schedule, and then suddenly realized, hey, there's a new opening here. They've shortlisted again. Why don't I go for ICC chief prosecutor? I'll be able to get support from most of the countries. I know it in my knowing. Do you think that's what happened? Or do you think some powerful forces somewhere in the background convinced him, approached him and convinced him, go for this thing. We're going to give you our support. You decide for yourself what really happened. But at the end of this story, when they voted, Bwana Khan emerged winner. And so we have a situation whereby a chief prosecutor who would have been very sympathetic to the plight of the victims of what happened in Kenya in 2007 was defeated by the lawyer of one of the accused persons. Not proven guilty, but accused, a suspect. So if you can look at this from a Kenyan perspective, many of the families of the victims, survivors of what happened in 2007, must have cheered and celebrated when it looked like their former lawyer, the Irishman, Bwana Gaynor, was going to be the next chief prosecutor. Indeed, maybe some of them even started making new plans of how they could contact him, to assist him, to push some new cases at the ICC. Because as we all know, our 2007 manenos remain unresolved. And it would have been better for these people, their hope would have remained alive, had the person who ended up being the ICC prosecutor been a stranger to them. But then instead, the person now who gets the job is somebody who defended one of the accused persons. What do you think they felt? Now, in my view, there seems to be a lot of politics in this whole saga. And guess what? Immediately you introduce politics, everything becomes very complex and very confusing. One question that comes to mind immediately is, where did the Kenyan ambassador to the Netherlands, Bwana Lenayapa, get his instructions to write to the ICC? Because on the surface of things, it would seem that the appointment of Bwana Khan who defended Deputy President William Samoei Ruto as the chief prosecutor is a good thing for the Deputy President. And we know from our current politics that nobody in government would dare do something good or to the advantage of the Deputy President without the approval of the President. Others would lose their job in a flash. We Kenyans know that for a fact from our local politics. And we also know, at least most of us do, that there are some people in Kenya who want the cases against the Deputy President reopened. The cases at the ICC. And there is a very important point you need to remember. The cases against the President ended, legally speaking. But the cases against the Deputy President are still in limbo. They're still open. They can very easily get restarted with the presentation of new evidence. New evidence can chomoka from somewhere. Oh, yes. Circumstances change, even for witnesses. Because a witness may not have felt able to come forward at that point in time. But maybe now, when so much has changed, they may be willing to step forward. Now, I'm sure somebody is going to challenge me and tell me, Chris, hold on a minute. When somebody is appointed a prosecutor, just like when a lawyer is appointed a judge, they become impartial. And they do their job, their new job, forgetting all the baggage they carried from their previous job. Well, my simple question is, are we talking about a human being or are we talking about a robot? Not only that, we also have something called client-lawyer privilege. Legally, any information Bwana Khan may have gotten in the course of defending the Deputy President, he cannot use in any way. Even if he uses it and somehow no action is taken against him, he will have destroyed his career as a lawyer. No other client is going to ever trust him again in his life. And this job at the ICC is not going to have it forever. At some point, he will finish his term and he may go back to practicing law. As a lawyer representing interests or persons. So the real question we need to ask is, will Bwana Khan be a prosecutor for victims? Or will Bwana Khan's judgment and prosecutions be clouded by his empathy towards people allegedly, falsely accused of these serious crimes? What kind of prosecutor is he going to be? Will he always be suspicious of statements from victims and assume that those victims have been coached to tell lies for political reasons? It is very sad that some of these horrors, some of these terrible things that happen to people are reduced to politics. When people have lost their livelihoods, people have lost their lives, lost loved ones, they've lost their homes. And then after all that, every time the issue is brought up, it is brought up politically. Nobody ever thinks to remember and start speaking about it like they are real human beings who are involved. They are real people who suffered and continue to suffer to this day. And yet, they have not received justice and will probably never receive justice. How sad is that? And amid all this, we just label it political. How sad. Well, the thing is, we will not have to wait long to discover what kind of chief prosecutor Karim Khan is going to be. Admittedly, it takes over a very challenging job where two brilliant minds before him have failed, or mostly failed. And to be fair to them, it may not have been all their fault. Because there are a lot of people, a lot of factors that go into a successful prosecution at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. There is no way you can succeed with a lone wolf mentality or a Superman mentality. But at least whatever happens at the ICC going forward, especially after June 16th this year, will be most fascinating. Now, if you've liked this video, please remember to give me a like and kindly subscribe so that you never miss the unique content we usually carry on this channel. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.